Hi, this is a short, light fantasy story intended to amuse, but since it's mine, it will likely have the opposite effect. In spite of its light nature, it digs into the nature of nobility, envy, and honor, all of which would work better if it wasn't about dogs and cats. As I said, it's my story. The Duchess. It had been just 2 days since Lord Sniffentook established his domain, claiming sovereignty over the Duchess uptown and establishing his keep with its sturdy chain link walls, its surfeit of vehicles, and most of all, the magnificently comfortable throne. In the time required for a good lick, he transitioned from emigre to potentate. Sniffentook now knew he was destined for greatness, seeing to his subjects' desires and charging to their rescue in hours of despair. This keep would be his just reward for the hours of adventure and duty which chivalry demanded. Beyond his obligations, this was the mission he'd always sought. He was home. So it was that fateful afternoon when he trotted back from his latest challenge, the dire concern of Tink's lost ball. You'd think a bulldog would be more persistent. Perhaps he had already spoiled his subjects, but it had been fun frolicking with the well-punctured shell of a volleyball before sending Tink back to her girl for supper. Supper. What was the diner around the corner offering this evening? So thoughtful of them to package their meals in those nice cans, carefully covered to keep the meals warm, and then cleaning up after he finished. Excellent subjects, a fine castle, ample food. What more could canine nobility desire? Then a pall fell over the realm. As Sniffentook approached his throne, the sofa standing in the middle of Valencio's junkyard, what did he behold but a usurper? And not just any usurper, not some lordly collie or terrier. No, this was the most despicable knave imaginable, with four paws, an absurdly succinct snout, fluffy gray hair, and a body the fraction of the size of his magnificence. There sat a British Shorthair, a cat, reclining on his throne. Who are you to intrude on my domain? The brigand gradually opened one eye, yawning. Oh, the new guy. Welcome to my neighborhood. Not really, but we'll keep up the act. Now she smiled in an annoying feline way. Won't we? Intolerable. I will thank you to vacate my throne. My, rude, aren't we? She said as she stretched. You show up here earlier this week while I've been running the show for a year, and you're ordering me around? I don't think so, bub. It's my right as protector of the realm. Where were you when bandits kidnapped my subjects? When have you lifted a paw to help your fellows? Under what circumstances will you bestir yourself to rescue the citizens of this blessed realm? Her amusement grew. If you mean the way you ambushed the dog catcher, who cares? A few less mutts would add class to the neighborhood. And as for helping puppies find their toys, I prefer to spend my time hiding them. Sniffentook recoiled in terror. He had never expected to witness such a depth of depravity before his eyes, and with such evident pride. Oh, by the way, I'm saying, you know what? Why don't you just call me the Duchess? And I'm Lord. Yeah, little sniffin' trash. I've heard all about you. Sniffentook is Lord Sniffentook. Same difference. Either way, why don't you just shove off and let me get back to my nap? Surely there's a toy mouse lost somewhere around here. Why don't you go find it and bring it back to me as a token of your respect? Capiche? Such vile, insufferable arrogance. Although he thought he'd seen a stuffed chipmunk in Jimmy's yard, it probably even had a squeaker, and ripping those out was always the most amusing and diverse. No, perish the thought. Duty and honor were at stake here, not mere toys. Go ahead, Sniffing Toilet. Run off and amuse yourself. And thanks for spotting the sofa. I hadn't realized how comfy it was before now. I can see myself taking tons of naps here, probably every afternoon, and I may drop in occasionally at night to class the joint up. He could no longer contain himself, springing across the distance, covering the 6 feet to the sofa in a single bound, and landing with teeth bared, his jaw snapped closed, rather than landing on the infidel's tail, resulting in the most satisfying scream from the so-called Duchess. He found himself biting into the air. The cat peered down from the throne arm. Oh, is that how it's going to be? Good luck catching me, you ugly mutt. Let the usurper see who's the real boss. Sniffentook jumped toward the sofa arm, passing through empty air where the Duchess had been before, landing on the discarded engine block of a Yugo. Paws barely touching the metal as he turned left in pursuit of his enemy. His next bound dropped him in a pool of grease. Good idea, she said. A little gray would certainly make it easier for you to fake nobility. When he got hold of this foul little tabby, he would not sass out of her. Gray? Everyone knew brown was the color of nobility. The despicable Duchess leaned down from the cab of a wrecked truck, laughing at him. He sprang at her, striking the middle of the driver's door. 3 times he tried to reach her in a single leap before running to the rear, bounding onto the bed, bounding forward, bracing his paws on the cab only to find his persecutor returned to the throne. Fire erupted in his veins as he stormed the sofa, only to see her scampering along the path leading away. He wheeled and charged, closing the distance in an instant. If the demoness was so foolish as to remain earthbound, there would be no escape for her. But as he closed the gap, she slithered onto a sink, and from there a slimy shower stall. Let her stay there but a moment more. Sniffentook threw himself forward, calling on all his speed and might as he head-butted the shaky stall, capsizing it, scrambling through infested veils, hoping to find his foe pinned to the ground. Instead, she looked down from the remnants of a trailer as he shook away cobwebs and the beginning of a serious headache. Hey, Sniffy yourself. Thanks for the push, but I really don't need your help here. The Duchess turned, retreating as our hero once again gave chase, intent on removing his unholy adversary from his realm. His just quest met with failure as the cat jumped from perch to perch while he lurched after her, regularly falling along the way as piles of debris collapsed under his noble frame. The chase continued across abandoned automobiles, tottering toilets, lamps, luggage, and even the occasional rubbish receptacle. There was a little of everything in Sniffentook's keep, or what he thought of as his keep. The low point for the Lord came when he hurled from the top of a refrigerator, aiming for a vanity where the cat smiled at him, only to fall short and land in the sand pile, which clung to the grease already caked on his coat. Hey, your lordship, need to stop and clean yourself for a bit? Maybe a couple days. I'll just amble back to my sofa and grab a nap. Defeat. He'd never reach her. Yet in the depths of his despair, a fresh design befell him. He would not catch her. For reason beyond Sniffentook's comprehension, cats had jumping and climbing capabilities that dogs could not match. But if he could get her to come to him, well, let's just say the question of nobility would be resolved once and for all, and there was only one place to set that trap. But how could he disguise his play? Sniffentook tried fading back, thinking that once they broke contact, he could return to the throne and she would assume he'd given up. But she never let him get far behind, always keeping him within eyesight. As he slowed, she slowed. When he tried to take advantage of this and suddenly sprinted at her, he found himself landing on an empty rocking chair, mini fridge, or sports coupe. Truly, she was a being from the depths of Hades. This may be the most annoying cat ever, but clearly she was also the master of this game, so he needed to stop playing. Sniffentook finally dropped to the ground on the path, resting his head between his paws, and said, "This has been fun, but I think I'm done. Go on, do what you wish. It's nap time for me." What cat could resist nap time? Not this one. "Good idea. I think I'll go settle in for a few winks on my new bed." Sniffentook watched with one open eye as the Duchess sashayed across the yard and up onto a vanity, taking the direct path across the trash, as he expected. As soon as she was out of sight, he was up and sprinting. She may be fast, but she still had to land, reorient herself, gather herself, and make each leap. And if she dropped to the ground, she'd have a serious obstacle course. He would easily beat the evil one back to the couch. And so he did, scooting under it and curling up behind its back, awaiting her arrival, which came seconds after he set his trap. "Huh, I thought he'd take the bait," she said. "He can't be ready to give up yet. I haven't had this much fun since I hid my servant's car keys from her. Well, I've got a surprise for his lordship. This game isn't over. Not even close." But it wasn't Sniffentook who was surprised. Our noble knight sprang over the sofa top, landing squarely on top of her. "I have you now. Surrender and accept my authority. Pledge fealty to your lord." "Umph," the Duchess said as she forced her way out from under him. "Look here, Sniffentook. I'm going to have to clean myself for a week, and if I'm not careful, my servant will give me a bath." "Just deserts for defying your true lord." "True lord, true snort. Look, you're welcome to look after all the little doggies, ferrets, and hamsters around here, but the cats and mice are mine." Who would ever want to rule over cats? "That is acceptable to me, but I must have my castle." "No sweat there. I've got much better digs anyway." Easier than he'd expected. Sniffentook stood up, releasing the feline, who promptly jumped to the ground. "But don't think this means you have any hold over me," she said. "And you can expect me to drop by for a little playtime whenever I want. You're dumber than a mouse smelling cheese, but you're fun, and I look forward to tormenting you until your bizarre notion of nobility lands you in the slammer." With this, the Duchess turned and strolled down the path to the junkyard exit, occasionally looking over her shoulder to see if she was pursued. Sniffentook settled into his throne with a sigh. Yet another threat vanquished, though in this case he was certain there would be struggles in the future. Perhaps he should uncover the Duchess's lair and provide evidence of his superiority in her own domain. Yes, this war would continue, but not until he had a proper nap. That was when he noticed that his throne now had the faint aroma of feline paw hair. This would not stand. Revenge beckoned as he sprinted toward the exit, ready to continue the battle as long as duty demanded, even if it lasted until dinner. If you enjoyed this, I have another story on Lord Sniffentook, which will be out soon. Bless you. May your kingdom have its own adventures, and may uninvited invaders never steal your sofa, particularly if they have 4 paws.